Hi, we're going to utilize the Laravel Queue service for our application. So, queues allows us to defer the processing of a time-consuming task until a later time. For example, sending an email after registration, or in our case, creating a new ticket in FreshDesk when the webhook gets triggered. Imagine if we wouldn't use queues. So there's a new task, and the webhook gets triggered. But there's an issue with the connection between our application and FreshDesk. The result is that our application will fail adding the new ticket, and the webhook is not going to get fired again, and we end up with a missing ticket. So utilizing the queues for such cases help us processing all the information in case our app fails. The queue item will not get deleted if it fails, and will be processed in another time. I think we can start with configuring the queue driver in the .m file. We're going to use the simple database queue driver, which will connect to our locally set up MySQL database. We'll have to create a jobs table for this to work. So create a new migration. And let's call it jobs table. Just open up the file. And I'm going to copy and paste the schema of this table from the documentation. Let's fill the done method. Once this is done, we should run the migration. And it seems okay. Let's just check if we do have this table. Great, now we can easily push jobs into our queue from anywhere. We should go ahead and set up our connection with FreshDesk. Require the FreshDesk Laravel package with Composer. Then we will have to register the service provider in the facade class. You should open up the app.php file in the Bootstrap directory. In order to use LUMEN with facades, you will have to uncomment this line. We will then register our facade class with a class_alias function. The first part is the fully qualified name, and the second is the alias. Then just scroll down and find a section where you can register the service provider. I'm just going to copy and paste one of the commented lines above and just amend the name of the service provider. Next, we will have to create the configuration file. Create a config directory. And we should create a freshdesk.php file where we should return the configuration array. This array only contains the API key and the domain. You can obtain these from FreshDesk. I'm going to define these now, but not in the video. Once this is done, we should head over to our API controller. So, do you remember we dumped the request here in this method? Let's remove that line now. And I want to check if the request has a task value. If it does, then let's create a new variable called task. Now, I'm going to create the data that is required for creating a ticket in FreshDesk. We're required to set the description and the subject. So we'll have to provide the email of the sender, and I'm going to set the priority to low and the status to open. So these are the required fields that we need to provide for FreshDesk. Now, all we have to do here is call our FreshDesk facade and pass over the data array to create the ticket. Don't forget to include the FreshDesk facade at the top. Let's just dump the ticket and check if it is working. I'm going to open my FreshDesk dashboard, and you can see that there are no open tickets here currently. Let's just open Postman, and you can find the request that we made previously in the History tab. I think we can go ahead and send it. As you can see, it worked because we received back the details of the ticket. I'm gonna check my FreshDesk dashboard, and yes, it is here. Let's go back to our controller and make this a little bit fail-proof. I want to catch all the exceptions. And if the exception is an API exception, then this can be added to the log. Otherwise, we can throw the exception. I'm just going to define a default response, what we send back if nothing happens. This will be something must have gone wrong. Yep. So if the ticket has been successfully added, I'm just going to replace this response with a success message. The ticket has been added to FreshDesk. Then also, if it is an API exception, then just replace the error message with the appropriate message that we got back. We can also add the status code if we want, and that's it. Oh, let's fix these. And finally, I would like to return a Json response. Let's test it, and yes, it worked. Refresh this as well, and it is here. So basically, if the webhook sends a request to this method, to this URL, then this method will create a new ticket in FreshDesk. And that's all we want, really. The next step is to clean up this controller method by putting all of this in a new job. We can then also push these jobs into a queue. So go ahead and create a new job. Lumen doesn't include generators for creating new job classes, so we will have to do this manually. We are going to call this create ticket from task. And I'm going to use the example from the documentation, which provides the basic structure. We should define a protected property. This will be the task, and it is an array. And we will pass this array when constructing the class. This handle method is called when the job is processed by the queue. So we are going to copy most of the code here from our controller. Yeah, there's a missing bracket. Okay. And just edit these. Don't forget to include FreshDesk at the top. And yeah, we should remove these response arrays because we are no longer returning a response. But you can definitely add some logging. We're just not going to get into that in this video. Alright, I think our job class is done. Hopefully we won't get any errors. Let's go back to our controller and just amend the default response. This will be the request does not contain the required values. Just remove this lonely bracket we left here. We can actually use the queue facade to push our job into the queue. Just don't forget to pass the task value from the request, and we can remove this at the top. Yep, we should also define a success response, of course. The task has been added to the queue. And finally, don't forget to include these at the top. We can test this with Postman now. Okay, so far so good. So we got the success message, but we should double check this in our database. Yep, the queue item is here. Why don't we go ahead and use the queue work artisan command to process the next job in the queue. As you can see, the job was processed, and if we check the jobs table, then it should be empty. If we refresh the dashboard, then we can see that the new ticket has been added. I'm going to quickly send a couple more tasks with Postman and see if all gets added. Yep, the table seems okay. Just process one item, refresh this, one is gone. With the listen command, we can actually start processing all the items in the queue. You can see that all 4 is done now, but if we happen to add another item, it will be processed as well. So that's the 5th. And if we have a final look at FreshDesk, we should be able to see all of the items. That's it for this video. I think it's long enough. In the last part, I'm going to publish this project to GitHub so you guys can check it out. And I'm also going to talk about what did we actually build in this series. I hope you liked the video and please stay tuned for more. Thanks.